Hello, BookTube. It's Tag Tuesday, and every day is Tag Tuesday this week for me because I'm trying to catch up on the barrage of great tags that have come out recently, whether I've been tagged in them or not. And this is one that I omitted, even though I was, in fact, tagged in it. This is the Recluse Book Tag that was made by Matthew at Mayberry Book Club, and he tagged me when he put up his tags, and I just didn't notice, I guess. So, and it's a short one, but it'll do for this progress where I'm going to do a tag every day this week until I've got the tags out of my system. So it's just 4 prompts. Question number 1 is, what do you look for in the ultimate bookstore if you only have an hour to shop there? And I don't know. I've got the impression from Matthew and from a few other people who've done this tag that this ultimate bookstore can have books that don't exist as well as books that do. I'm going to limit mine to books that do exist. Otherwise, I don't even know what I would want. And I have been in this position many, many times. It's a comparative luxury for me to go to a big, jam-packed used bookstore with people who don't mind spending time there. Most of the time when I go to such places, or new bookstores, most of the time I'm in the company of people who get rapidly very itchy when they're in a bookstore. It's a luxury to go with someone who can just browse endlessly and get lost in the stacks. So usually I am restricted to much less than an hour. And in any such bookstore, the very first thing I look for is the store dog. I would much rather face smooch with a new dog than I would look for at all the books in the Library of Alexandria. That's the first thing I do, and I've had many a great belly rubbing session and face smooching session because that was the first thing I did. But if the shop has no dog, if it has in fact a cat or multiple cats, in other words, if I'm going straight to the books, then I would go straight to the Penguin Classics section because I love Penguin Classics, and there are quite a few that I haven't seen in a long time, or that I've never seen, or that I had once upon a time and don't have anymore. I'd go straight there first, see what they had, and then maybe after that the biography section, just to see if maybe there was something that it's less of an imperative with me than it would be with a lot of other people, because I get a pile of books in the mail every day. So, and I read mostly those books. Now my reading has mostly shifted to new releases. So a great bookstore that has an infinite variety, I'm going to be thinking, well, I don't have to pay for most of the books I read. So, but that would be the order, probably. Would be first, check to see if there's a dog behind the counter. And then second, go to the Penguin Wall or Penguin Classics, or look for them in their individual sections. Then question number 2 is, who is your favorite reclusive character or novel with a reclusive, antisocial loner character, or a novel with an isolated or claustrophobic setting? And Matthew, in his video, mentions Oblomov in a great novel by that title, by Goncharov, which is but Oblomov is a fantastic book. It's not the main character isn't so much a recluse as he is just lazy. So it's not that he's not socializing because he's antisocial, really. It's that he's not socializing because he can't be bothered. But that novel complicates. People always forget. People remember the opening of Oblomov and forget how complicated the book gets later on. So it wouldn't be my choice. My character would also be a kind of a margin call, and that would be Mr. Kozapon from Middlemarch, who is a dry as dust, pedantic scholar who is in his own way. He's terrified of his own success. He's terrified of putting his work together and finishing it. He has become that work, A Key to All Mythologies, has become a kind of a shorthand for a crutch of an ongoing work. And he isn't so much a recluse as he is just antisocial. That's one of the possibilities here, is that he's just antisocial. He has no ability to talk to other people until it occurs to him very belatedly and very awkwardly that he might want to marry. And his letter is, I'm sure a lot of you are smiling now remembering it, his letter in Middlemarch proposing to Dorothea Brooke that he tender his affections to her is one of the most brilliant feats of comic writing there's one very much like it in Pride and Prejudice, but this is even better. This is just amazing. So maybe Mr. Kozapon, I have a sweet spot in my heart for him. because I always wonder what would have happened if he had met Dorothea Brooke when he was as young as Will Ladislaw? What would have happened if he had met her when he was a young man? When he, as we're told, might have been an archbishop. What would have happened then? Maybe would that have changed things? She wants to help him. Maybe he would have taken the help if he'd been younger and a little less insecure. But anyway, question number 3 is, with a week off and no obligations, no family, no work, what book or books would you be reading? I, of course, don't know how to answer this question because that is my life. I don't have any obligations. All I do is read. So what I would be reading on such a week is what I'd be reading on any week, which is ideally advanced copies of stuff that is 2 weeks or 3 weeks out from where I am right now on the calendar, and finished copies of stuff that's right around the corner. Just in a constant. There's no goal book. I don't have a goal book. I don't have a big 3-volume copy of the Mahabharata that I'm trying to work my way through. I don't have anything like that. Instead, what I read is new releases, and I read them first initially to get an impression, let it sit, let it molder and germinate, and then the finished copy to sort of flesh out and lock down my initial impressions so that I can write about the book. So that's what I would be reading in that obligation-free week, because that's every week for me. And question number 4 is, what book would you actually be reading? Under the assumption that the big, ambitious plans that you might have for such an unstructured week wouldn't actually happen. That when push came to shove, you would pick something else. I guess because the plans feel like work, or because they were unrealistic to start with. I'm not really sure what's going on here. I feel certain that it's a shot that's just missing me completely. It's just going right over my top sails. So I would actually be reading what I just described. I would actually be reading pretty much split down the middle of advanced copies from further down the line, usually paperbacks, because I haven't got the finished copy yet, and then the other half would be finished copies of stuff that's right imminent, stuff that I've maybe read before, maybe I just got the finished copy, so I haven't read it before, and I want to know it better, nail down its main points, extract its sweetmeats for dissection in a review, that sort of thing, and just onward in that way. The only exception, the only alteration or addition to that being a healthy sprinkling of used books, a healthy sprinkling of older backstock that comes to me totally at random. I don't have a plan for it at all. I have a mania for 2020, which is that a lot of that backstock is mystery novels, because I'm loving reading mystery novels. I'm just losing myself in them. But there's no plan there. That's just there's a large amount of that is sprinkled in with all of the current reading. And that is it. It's nice and simple. That is the Recluse Book Tag. And all that's left for me to do is tag people, and I think you already know what I'm going to say. All you have to do is glance at the news to know that there's a very high likelihood that in a week or 2 weeks at the most, everyone in the world is going to be a recluse. There's a pandemic. There's a global pandemic that is sweeping the world. The numbers are going up and up. There are more people who are tested, the more people who are testing positive. And in places like the United States, where the testing has lagged far behind the incident, and where the clustering hasn't yet it hasn't reached an epidemiological tipping point, like we've seen it happen in other countries. We've seen other countries do this. They inch and inch and inch and inch. That's what happens. They inch and inch and inch up, and then they go up like that. And that's when you have border closings and people locked in their homes and whatnot. And that's also when you have a complete breakdown of the medical establishment, of health services. Where it's not just that hospitals are overburdened, it's that they can't provide care for anybody because they're totally swamped. It doesn't take a whole lot to make that happen. And it certainly doesn't take a lot to make that happen in a country like America. So in very little time, I think, we're all going to be either self-quarantining or state quarantine. And so we'll all be recluses. So I tag you all. So I want to know, your answers to these questions, especially that one about the ideal bookstore, because I dream in the back of my mind, I dream about going to big, well-stocked, fun, used bookstores with every one of you. I would love to do that. I'll never meet most of you in person, much less go to a bookstore, but I would love to do that. So, which is why, if we're ever free from this horrible plague of a pandemic, and you come to Boston, we must all go to the Brattle Bookshop because it's a great place. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this up and continue on with my endless stream of tags tomorrow. Thank you, BookTube.